I'm about to tell you why Donald Trump is terrible. But you already know he's terrible. But if all you know about him is what mainstream media say, then you don't know the most important reasons why he's terrible. And the answer to why he's terrible is the same answer as to why Joe Biden is terrible. And the answer is U.S. hegemony, U.S. tyranny over its own people and over the rest of the people in the world. And both Donald Trump and Joe Biden are puppets on strings, and they may be willingly pulled like Joe Biden or unwillingly pulled by Donald Trump. But actually with Donald Trump, it's a mixed bag. He's both willing and unwilling to have his strings pulled. But in both cases, it's the string pullers who are the problem. Here are a couple of wonderful articles from Caitlin Johnstone. A wrong turn at Albuquerque. Notes from the edge of the narrative matrix, and successful people are misery super spreaders. Her first missive is delivered to Donald Trump supporters. If all your rabbit holing through information about conspiracies and establishment power leads you to believe that the world is being secretly rescued by the President of the United States, you made a wrong turn at Albuquerque. It really sucks how the U.S. intelligence cartel is going to claim a rival nation interfered in the election no matter who wins in order to advance pre-planned geostrategic agendas, and everyone's just going to accept it on faith because they learned nothing these last 4 years. Not looking forward to Trump supporters unquestioningly swallowing the narrative that China interfered for Biden and then spending years screaming about the need for more Cold War aggressions against Beijing, while Biden does exactly that, and they still claim he's not doing enough. The fact that politicians who not only supported the Iraq invasion but actively facilitated it are still becoming U.S. presidential nominees proves the entire American political system is corrupt beyond the possibility of redemption. Saying anything about Trump or Biden always gets Americans to reflexively assume that I'm pushing for one or the other to win. But for the record, I have no more preference for the outcome of this fake oligarchic election than I have for the winner of the next WrestleMania. Part of the problem is that Hollywood has conditioned people to think that where there are bad guys, there must be a good guy around to oppose him. So they look for one and find Trump or Biden. But there are no good guys in a system that's rigged to only let in corrupt assholes. If you don't talk about Trump in a way that draws angry responses from both Democrats and Republicans, you're doing it wrong. When both mainstream parties exist to deceive you, it's impossible to inform yourself using mainstream partisan narratives without being deceived. They're both worldviews that are deliberately designed to distort your perception. The mass media don't use the word moderate accurately, whether they're talking about moderate rebels in Syria or moderates who stand between two warmongering oligarchic parties. This is because the mass media are there to promote an empire whose ideology is violent extremism. Things will remain fucked as long as moderate means standing between one warmongering political party that lets rich people screw you and another warmongering political party that lets rich people screw you. The only real consequences of Russiagate have been manufacturing consent for a new Cold War and neutering any potential leftward movement in the United States, both of which were pre-existing agendas of the same intelligence agencies that started Russiagate. Supporting the Vietnam War was dumb. Supporting the Iraq invasion after being lied to about Vietnam was an order of magnitude dumber. Supporting any U.S. war agendas after being lied to about Iraq is an order of magnitude even dumber than that. Monopolistic social media giants collaborate with U.S. government foreign policy objectives to ensure their monopoly is allowed to continue, and then ban accounts for posting ill will toward U.S. government leadership, but China and North Korea are bad because they have government censorship. Calls for civility and politeness are always anti-populist in nature and always arise from the fear of the ruling class that the commoners can wake up at any moment to their strength of numbers and overthrow them. Everyone carries trauma and delusion. Irresponsible people focus on conquest and achievement, thereby spreading their trauma and delusion around, and they're praised for it. Responsible people prioritize inner work, healing their trauma and delusion, and they're called losers. Our species is never going to compete its way out of the existential threats it competed its way into. We will move out of the capitalist model of competition and into a collaborative relationship with each other and with our ecosystem, or we will go extinct. It is that simple. Katie knows all about banning. Her Twitter account has been suspended before, which is why it's really ironic when she points out that US government leadership criticisms are what get us banned more than if we criticize other countries. And the social media moguls are the ones who are doing this repression in the name of the CIA. Now we'll see if Kate can say bad things about Donald Trump and get Democrats and Republicans both to lose their shit about it. Because otherwise, we're not doing it right. We are led by the least among us, the least intelligent, the least noble, the least visionary. We are led by the least among us, and we do not fight back against the dehumanizing values that are handed down as control icons. Terence McKenna. The term super spreader has been popping up a lot in mainstream news media and Democrat-aligned partisan rhetoric in reference to President Trump and his habit of hosting of events without social distancing precautions, which led to a spike in positive COVID-19 tests throughout the White House. It's an interesting phrase because it highlights not just the way America's plutocrat president conducts himself in the midst of a novel coronavirus, but the way he and his ilk live their lives generally as well. In our society, those who are uplifted, rewarded, and applauded are those who make it their sole focus in life to obtain as much influence over as many lives as possible. That's basically how our insane society defines success. Having a whole lot of employees, a whole lot of subservience, a whole lot of consumers, a whole lot of fans, a whole lot of people who listen to you and think you're important. The more lives you affect, the more successful you are considered to be. What this means is that those who wind up having the most influence over the most people are the ones who made doing so their highest priority in life. Not to become a better person, a good parent, a good spouse, a good friend, a good caregiver, a good listener, but to getting promoted, growing the business, crushing competitors, becoming famous, becoming influential, becoming powerful, becoming president. That's what the most influential human beings in our world have poured their life's energy into, generally speaking. Not into personal maturity and healing, but into conquest and power. Everything in our society encourages this, from the esteemed universities that wealthy go-getters attend to the movies and shows we all watch as we are trained in what to value. Which causes a lot of problems because what our society really needs above all else is healing and maturity. Being a small human in our world is a highly traumatic experience. We are surrounded by confused giants who move in scary, unpredictable ways and unwittingly pass on to their children a lot of the trauma they picked up from their own childhoods. And it leaves us with a lot of unconscious mental habits which govern the way we relate to the world in an unconscious and unhelpful way. Everyone carries trauma and delusion with them. Nobody gets to skip past this reality. We would live in a much healthier society if people prioritized becoming a healthy human being, healing their past trauma, becoming conscious of their inner processes, emotionally maturing, learning to love themselves, and learning to see life with clear eyes. But our society does not value this. Someone who prioritizes their own movement into psychological health instead of chasing what our society defines as success will very often be regarded as a nobody, a disappointment, a loser, a slacker, a black sheep, especially if they come from a family that has built a strong identity around success. The pressure to join in the race toward conquest and domination instead of healing and lucidity is very high, which of course results in the most unconscious, unhealthy people having the highest degree of influence over everyone else. It results in a kakistocracy where we are, as Terence McKenna said, led by the least among us. Here's your word of the day: kakistocracy. Noun: government by the worst people. I dare you to toss that one around a few times while you're at the water cooler. Where the world's most miserable and dysfunctional people are elevated to positions which enable them to spread their misery and dysfunction to as many people as possible. Where miserable people are made into super spreaders of misery. And so you wind up with the most powerful government in the world being led by a man who Gabor Mate, that's Aaron Mate's dad, once described as the clearest example of a traumatized politician one could ever see. A profoundly traumatized and traumatizing man who, because of where he placed his emphasis in life, has been elevated to the optimal position for spreading trauma throughout the entire world. In a healthy society, it would be the exact opposite. We would be encouraged to prioritize the journey into health, consciousness, and compassion, and our institutions would provide an abundance of support in that journey. People who are unhappy and dysfunctional would not be looked to as leaders, but encouraged to become psychologically healthy. And those who are looked to for leadership, if a healthy society has any leadership at all, would be those who have made the journey into a harmonious way of functioning in our world. Here's hoping we find a way to collectively move out of super spreader kakistocracy and into health.